Welcome to the Paper Machete.
5. Jonathan picked me up at 10:30 and we headed to Boy Wonder, where I was heartened to discover the shirt was, if anything, a bigger hit than it had been at Life on Mars. For the first time in the history of my miserable visits to that place, I was visible. Usually on these trips, Jonathan will introduce me to a circle of his friends who flash me a plastic sorority girl smile before muscling him away into the thick of the dance floor while I fade into the walls before drifting home under my own power to binge on cheese waffies and cheap pastry from the White Hen. That night, though, everything happened upside down. Jonathan's friends, not to mention a number of perfect strangers, introduced themselves and started conversations with me, in which I discovered that one or two of them were actually fairly interesting and knew who both Pablo Neruda and Italo Calvino were. And they all kept telling me how much they just loved the shirt. Most surprising of all was Damien, a crony of Jonathan's from the retail world who I'll confess I'd never gotten on with, despite the endless three-way dinners we'd endured together with Jonathan as our only point of connection. Damien generally affected a tone of amused condescension toward me, letting me know in a dozen subtle ways per encounter that only for the sake of Jonathan was he willing to consort with someone whose sofa didn't match his love seat. Yet tonight, Damien suddenly seemed to discover me. He dragged me onto the dance floor where he haunted me, grinning like a fool, and when I became unnerved by that and slunk away, he followed me back to the lounge area, wanting to know what sort of salad greens I thought were the wave of the future, and whether I'd like to come to his teeny-weeny martini party. He also asked me, numerous times and in numerous ways, exactly where I'd found the shirt. But I knew that was a secret I dared not reveal. If Damien knew the shirt came from PP Farthings, he would not only instantly lose his affection for it, he would feel humiliated for having let me know he liked it. For this was the essence of the difference between us. Damien was the sort of person whose world revolves around something called Prada shoes, and I was the sort of person who couldn't pick a pair of Prada shoes out of a 3-shoe lineup. So I kept deflecting the question, and Damien would prattle on about something else for a while before subtly raising the question again, and this went on in an endless cycle until the moment when, as we sat side by side on a tiny piece of club furniture, I felt his hands caressing me in a way that went well beyond amused condescension. Well, of course I froze. Could Damien actually be hitting on me? How could it be possible? I studied him for clues, but he didn't seem to be really aware of me. His gaze was lost in the hypnotic, reflective patterns of the garment I wore. Suddenly, it became clear to me. Damien wasn't hitting on me. He was hitting on the shirt. I did the only thing I could. I ran and hid in the washroom until closing. But the evening had one final indignity in store for me before last call. As I was lurking in the powder room, I had the misfortune to overhear a couple of queens in the lounge outside discussing the evening's highs and low spots. "Did you see that fabulous shirt?" asked Queen A. "But of course," said Queen B. "Pity about the sad little man it's attached to, though." And with that, they scampered off. 6. Next thing I knew, it was lights up, and Jonathan offered me a ride home. Much to my chagrin, Damien volunteered to tag along for the ride. Oh, Damien, I thought, what part of no don't you understand? Back at my place, Jonathan and Damien needed to come upstairs to pee. I felt the need to remove the shirt and restore myself to a solo act as soon as possible. So, I put on a Joan Baez album to soothe my shattered nerves and went to the bedroom to change. I hung the shirt in the closet and resisted the urge to stuff its breast pocket with garlic. When I came back to the living room, Damien excused himself to the washroom, leaving Jonathan and me alone to autopsy the evening. "So you were the hit of Boy Wonder tonight," said Jonathan. "Who knows? Maybe we'll make a Halsted Street Wonder Boy out of you yet." "Don't count on it," I spluttered. "It wasn't me that was the center of attention tonight. The truth of the matter is that the shirt is far more popular than I'll ever be." "Oh, Rupert, don't sell yourself short," said Jonathan dutifully. "The shirt was just the icebreaker. Your problem is that you reject yourself before anyone else has a chance to. Aren't I always telling you that?" "Yes, Jonathan. You tell me that without ceasing. It's like a kind of continuous Buddhist chant." "Say," said Jonathan, "hasn't Damien been gone an awfully long time for a simple wee-wee excursion? Damien, what are you doing there? Looking for the bidet?" Damien appeared rather hastily, looking as if he'd been caught out somehow, but for the life of me I couldn't figure out what that was about, and I was too tired and dispirited to worry about it. I showed them the door and went to bed. 7. Needless to say, I wanted nothing to do with the shirt for a while. I knew that it probably wanted to go out and be seen, but I deliberately wore clothes out of the dresser to avoid running across it in the closet and falling prey to its charms. But even as I was trying to ignore the shirt, its fame was only building in the outside world. Postings began to appear on the Life on Mars message board, speculating as to when the shirt would make its next appearance. The phone kept ringing too. A columnist for one of the gay rags wanted to do a piece called "All the Dirt on the Shirt." And over the following week, I received no less than 3 party invitations in the mail, all addressed to the shirt, care of yours truly. Gradually, it was becoming clear to me that I did not own the shirt. I merely accompanied it on its nightly revels. I partook of its radiance, but was not transformed by it. I began to realize that the shirt was not a character in my story. Alas, it was the other way around.